Hello there. It has been a little while, and I don't really have much of a reason why not. I think that I just go through phases where I don't feel inspired to make videos, especially on this channel, and sometimes I go through phases where all I want to do is post videos on this channel. So, yeah, I've been thinking so much. I'm always thinking about how best to do things. And I think one of the biggest things that I consider is that I think everybody should be like this, to be honest. I really feel like we should be leading lives based on what feels good to us at the time. And I think a lot of us want to push ourselves into a box and create strategies and shape our lives around the way we think things should be, the way other people tell us to do things. And especially when it comes to platforms like YouTube, there's just so many strategies. And for me lately, over the past few years, I think, my views have dropped a lot, especially over the past maybe year or so. And I don't know exactly why. I don't know if it's because I do all live video right now. I don't know if it's because I'm not making as many videos. I don't know if the algorithm has changed or people have lost interest in my content. Who knows? It just shouldn't really matter that much. And I should be able to create videos when I really want to create them and not make them just because I'm trying to get views and trying to not to lose subscribers and trying to kind of manipulate people. I think that's what it is it's not only feels like it's manipulating what feels best for me, but it also feels manipulative towards you if I'm creating content just to kind of fit some sort of a mold. And so I think that's why I go through phases where I don't post as frequently, because I simply just don't feel inspired to. And I struggle with that a lot because, so much of my career is based around YouTube and other platforms. But there's just like so much resistance within me that says, like, why should I do something just to fit some sort of strategy mold, if that makes sense. Now, I think that the reason that strategy is there is because it helps to connect with people. And one thing I think about too is that I've actually been watching a lot more YouTube, probably more YouTube regularly, consistently than I ever have before. I felt like for so many years of my career on YouTube, I didn't really watch YouTube videos. So I felt like I was just a creator, but not a consumer of content. Lately, I've been really, really drawn to YouTube, and I've been spending a ton of time on watching YouTube videos. And because when you log in with your account on YouTube, it remembers your preferences just as you're going through it. So if you watch somebody regularly, it'll remember that you watch them and it'll suggest more videos to you. And what I love is when I go onto the YouTube app, I watch on my phone almost entirely, which also I never thought I would do, right? I remember when years ago, I thought, why would I watch all those videos on my phone when I have a computer? But it's like more comforting to watch on my phone. So I'll usually just lie in bed and watch on my phone, even though my laptop's, a few feet away. I really love watching on my phone, and it's such a small screen. Anyways, it's just so funny how we've evolved in that direction, and more, people are consuming content. Maybe you're watching this on your phone. So anyway, what I've noticed is when I go on YouTube, which is usually several times a day to watch videos, I feel a little sad if there aren't new videos from the people that I love the most. And even just saying that, I start to think maybe I should be doing more frequent videos. But it completely contradicts what I just said about not posting unless I feel inspired to. So it's just it's kind of weird. I put dates on my calendar. for a while, as you may know, I was doing live videos every Monday at 5, and that's been on my calendar for a long time. And sometimes I just ignore it. Most of the time lately, I've just ignored it. I'm like, I don't feel like going live today. And I have the same thing on Fridays at 5, and I was doing that for a while for my main Eco Vegan Gal channel. And like this past Friday, I was like, it's inconvenient for me to make a video. I'm not going to. I've been pretty consistent over there, but you know, there's some weeks where I just don't feel like it. And I don't know. It's just kind of strange, to be honest. Right now, I feel very inspired, so I'm not forcing myself to do this video by any means. I sat down to my computer. Maybe this is a procrastination method, and I just was like not feeling inspired to do anything else. And I thought, this feels like a good time to make a video, so that's why I'm here right now. And I feel like this channel is so much about me sharing what's going on in my head and my life, and I thought that that was a really good place to begin this with. I think my last video was the end of May, which, if that's true, is kind of nuts. It also feels like June went by so fast. We're already halfway into July, and so I'll catch you up to speed and things that have been going on. Let's see. I don't really remember right off the top of my head what I did the first. There's that really beautiful hummingbird outside my window. Makes my heart feel good. I do know at the beginning of June, I got back into yoga. A lot's been going on with my body, so I'll share some of that. I've been struggling with my body image a lot, and I've had a couple. Maybe that's why I haven't been making as many videos. I feel like it can be really hard for me to get on camera when I'm not feeling good about my appearance. I feel fine about it right now. I feel more empowered now that I'm going back to yoga, and I really have shifted my diet a lot, so I've been eating a lot cleaner. Clean is not a word I necessarily want to use, but by that I mean I've been eating simpler and less processed foods. But I went through a frustrating time. I think it was around the beginning of June, I stepped on a scale for the first time in a while, and I was in complete disbelief at how much I weighed. Like, if I had to guess, I would not have guessed that number. It was so much higher. And I'm like, still feel like, how could that be real? I'm not somebody that weighs myself very often, obviously, but like the last time I probably weighed myself was years ago. I don't go to the doctor very frequently. And, I was actually taking my dog to the vet, and there was like a digital scale for dogs, and I was like, maybe this thing is off because it's not meant for humans, but it kind of seemed like it was probably the right way. I just remember feeling like, have I really gained that much over the past few years, right? And I suppose it makes sense, but I didn't think that my body had changed that much. And then I was looking back at photos of myself from when I felt in really good shape, probably like 6 years ago, and my body does look different. I don't usually take pictures in bikini. I don't really, I've felt self-conscious about my body most of my life. And so I don't really have like a lot of like revealing photos of myself, but you can tell in some photos that my body is thinner, right? And I assume it's kind of normal, especially when you're getting older. Like, your body changes, right? And yet I just felt like I could be doing better. And I really had to step back and think about what was going on for me and how can I shift this. And it feels really tricky because I think, I've been eating so much, as I mentioned, so much like fresh, unprocessed food the past 3 weeks or maybe 4 weeks-ish, maybe more. And so it's funny because, when you get into the habit of eating better, you kind of forget what it's like when you were not eating as well. So I definitely was in a habit of eating a lot of snacks, there's like a variety of snacks that I would buy, like packaged chips or puffed snacks or pretzels, whatever, like very, very frequently. And those don't really add any nutritional value. So what were they doing for me? They were satisfying. They satisfied like that crunchy, just the desire for something crunchy and salty and all of that. And I guess I probably just was not being very mindful and just kind of like maybe lying to myself about how I was eating. Maybe like it's funny because I'm not even fully aware, and maybe that's part of the thing is like I just didn't think it was affecting me that much. So I wanted to experiment by as I said, like cleaning up my diet, meaning like just being more mindful about it and really focused on a lot of raw food, because back in 2012, when I was in like really great shape, I was experimenting with the 80-10-10 diet, and I think that served my body really well. So I don't really want to do 80-10-10 and be super strict about it, I don't think, but I thought like I'll just start eating more raw. And so I've been leaning towards eating a lot of raw food. It has been tricky because it's a big shift, and I don't feel that called to be 100% raw. I guess like it's summertime and I'm in Southern California. It's really easy to eat a lot of raw food. And it's just different. I don't know. It's different. I've experimented with the raw food diet for many years, and I've gone through all sorts of phases with it. And it definitely feels good, and I feel like I look good when I eat a lot of raw food. I think right now I'm just trying to focus on eating a lot of salads and on like less processed foods and less snacks, and you know, I'm trying to cut out sugar. Like I'm trying to think. I've had sugar. Sugar will sometimes pop up in things that I'm eating. Like I got kale chips and they have sugar in them. Like, you know, and it's funny too, my relationship with food at the moment, because I don't have a car right now. Hopefully I will finally get my car in the next 2 months, maybe a month if I'm lucky, but I'm guessing it's going to be like my goal with getting my car is to be early September, because I really want to go on a cross-country road trip, and I'm going back to the East Coast in September. So fingers crossed, if I can have a car within the next 2 months, I could probably make it across the country in time for the things I need to do. If not, I'm not that attached to it. But anyway, so not having a car is really interesting. Mainly because I love going to a lot of different grocery stores. So I have a grocery store walking distance from me, and it's actually pretty good. It's a very nice grocery store. It's just kind of more like an average grocery store that happens to have some good organic selection and some vegan food. There's a Trader Joe's maybe a mile from me, but you know, that's a trek if I'm going to walk there. And there's like, I don't know, I'm not really getting into the bus system at the moment. But I do take the subway a lot. It just doesn't make any sense to take. There's no way to really get there from the subway. My favorite grocery store in my neighborhood is not accessible by foot. It'd take me like an hour to walk there one way. And anyways, I'm not going to analyze all my grocery stores, but let's just say that the places I want to go are pretty far, and I'm like really recognizing how challenging it is to get a diverse amount of food, and to also be mindful about spending, because the grocery store closest to me is like on the pricier side, and they don't have as much selection, and sometimes I just feel like so limited and stressed. But it also brings me so much joy when I'm in another part of town, or I'm with friends and I'm around a grocery store I don't usually go to, and it's like suddenly this newfound appreciation for it, because it's no longer as convenient as it was when I had a car. So that's kind of shifted some things for me with food over the past few months, because I've been carless since March, and I've borrowed some cars, and I've been doing ride sharing, and I've been taking the subway a lot. So it's been a lot more eco-friendly, but it's just kind of like been tough in a lot of different ways for food. Then we have yoga. So coming back to the beginning of June, that's when I restarted my yoga membership. I put it on hold because I went carless and I was traveling a bunch earlier this year. And then I realized, like, not working out, I felt awful, and I felt like I was really getting out of shape. And so I had to transition myself back into yoga. So when I first started back in yoga, I think it was the beginning of June, I really played it safe because I had kind of injured myself at the beginning of the year through yoga, and it hasn't healed yet. Like my hip has not been right this whole year. So I thought, okay, I'll like ease myself into yoga. And then I had a really triggering experience, and I thought about sharing this in a video like right when it happened. I was actually really considering doing an uncensored video around this, and I almost don't want to talk about it because it's uncomfortable to discuss. But so I'm not going to name names. Maybe I'll like say more details later on. But somebody very close to me shamed me about my body several times at the end of June, and it was such an awful feeling. And I don't know if I've like, it's such a delicate thing for me because this person has been in my life for a long time, and a lot of my challenges with my body have stemmed from this person's comments. And it's just really tough because let me take a tangent for a second. I just saw this documentary last night called The Three Identical Strangers about these triplets. I highly recommend it. It's so good. And I don't want to say much about it because I went into this movie knowing nothing, and I'm so glad that I did. It is so good. It's this, fantastic documentary about triplets. And it took these turns I didn't expect it to, but one of the things that they talk a lot about the movie is nature versus nurture, and how sometimes we're kind of a lot of the things in our lives are biologically wired. And also just the impact that our family and how we're raised can affect, what that impact can have on our lives. And I had a bigger point with this tying in. Oh, I think part of it, what I was going to say is I feel like also there's so much about ourselves that we can't possibly know ourselves because we're so biased. We're in ourselves. We have a fixed perspective. So sometimes when I talk about things like my struggle with my body, I feel like I don't really understand it because I've been through it. And I wonder sometimes, like, do I have even more trauma than I'm conscious of when it comes to my body? And that's something I just reflect on a lot, is how deeply have the wounds gone with me and my body. And I feel like it affects me so much. And I also just don't know where the spectrum of normal is when it comes to how we feel about our bodies. So for me, I started having disordered eating and I've talked about this a lot, so you can find a bunch of videos on this, but I struggled with that when I was a teenager. And I used to purge a lot. That was something I went through maybe for like a year or two. And I remember like knowing it wasn't quite right. It's so weird. It feels like a whole different person. It's like so distant. Like I don't have that desire to purge anymore. I think that was felt like the best solution because I felt out of control with eating. And I wanted, I still feel that way a lot of times, like I struggle. I feel like every time I eat, it's a little bit of a struggle. And it's not, I think it's interesting, like when you've gone through really intense times, like I did when I was a teenager. I mean, to me, that was like the height of disordered eating was making myself throw up after meals. And I remember, veganism really shifted things for me because I felt like, oh, now that I'm not eating meat and dairy, it was like easier to maintain my body and my figure, And then when I figured out I was really sensitive to gluten, I lost weight. And so it's like understanding food has helped me feel more comfortable in my body. But I think like when I stepped on the scale in the past 2 months, whenever that was, it was either end of May or beginning of June. It must have been beginning of June. It was kind of this like going back to that state of feeling just confused about how my body, it's like I just suddenly I feel like I have to like figure myself out again or something, you know? It's like I wanted to start eating all this raw food again. I'm like, okay, well, what's the quickest way for me to feel more comfortable in my skin, you know? And why did I gain all that weight? Like, is it an emotional thing, or is it that I just wasn't eating mindfully? And it's just kind of frustrating, you know, when like, I think most of my life I've just felt so frustrated because I love food. I love the experience of food. But it's like this battle of, for me, feeling like every time I eat something, I'm not sure how it's going to affect me, you know? And I've noticed myself being super hyper aware of it. And I'm not that concerned, but I'm slightly concerned for myself, to be honest. I'm not that concerned because, by the way, that tangent about the 3 identical strangers, if you see the movie, I think maybe you'll understand why I brought that up. Because it's kind of like, again, the nature versus nurture, and how much control do we really have, and all these things that, you know, affect the way that we act in life and all of that. And a lot of my comfort stems out of feeling in control. So when I don't feel in control, I feel very uncomfortable. So I think like with food, it's a lot about control, or like, you know, right now I'm trying to work out every day, and I'm like, it's uncomfortable. I don't really, you know, right now, especially not having a car, it's like this whole ordeal getting to yoga. And it's fine. It's getting easier and easier the more I do it. But it's like, sometimes I'm like, gosh, like I spend so much time and energy just going to yoga, and I'm like pushing myself so hard. And I'm also like being more strict with myself about food. It's just like, it starts to feel like my body just takes up so much time and energy, but I don't know what else to do, because when I don't feel like I'm taking good care of my body, I just feel horrible about myself. You know, like I haven't been feeling great. Like even right now, I'm just not that confident about how I look, and it doesn't matter what anybody else says. Like that's just within me. It's like there's just not a lot of convincing, you know, and it's tough during summertime. Like I went to the pool yesterday with friends, and like I felt okay about my body. It actually helped for me to be around other women my age that I'm friends with, and like none of them were in perfect shape. I was like, it was so relieving. I was like, oh, I think my body looks about the same as theirs. It's tough when you live in a city like Los Angeles. And then in this time with social media, you're constantly bombarded with all of these incredibly good-looking people. And, you know, where was I? I was somewhere recently where I was just like looking around, and I felt like every woman around me was just so beautiful and young and just had this perfect figure. There was one in particular. Where was that? Maybe that was yesterday somewhere. Anyways, like I'll just sometimes look at these women and be like, wow, I just don't think my body's ever looked like that, and I don't know if it ever would, but there's part of me that's like, I want to see how good I can get my body to look. But, you know, at a certain time, you just wonder, like, how much of an obsession is that? Is my whole life, I don't want to dedicate my whole life to, like, looking a certain way. But it's tough because it also feels so uncomfortable. I don't know. I'm kind of just rambling at this moment, but just to share with you really authentically how I've been feeling. This is like stuff that goes on in my head all the time. And I think it kind of stems back to like what I was saying at the very beginning of this video, is that I think I struggle with a lot of things in my life, of like feeling like in order to be really accepted or successful, you have to be a certain way. So I have to have a certain number of views or likes or whatever followers, whatever it is. And in order to get that, I have to change myself. I have to push myself in ways that don't really feel natural to me or comfortable. And so sometimes I'll try it and I'll push myself and I'll do it, but it doesn't feel sustainable, and I feel like I know myself decently well. I think life is an never-ending journey of trying to figure ourselves out, but I kind of know that if I don't want to always push myself to work out, and I don't always want to watch with my eat. Sometimes I do want to just indulge, and that sometimes can be maybe for a few months, right? But then it's like, I kind of feel like I let myself go for a few months this year, and then I feel really bad about my body right now. And so I'm like, great, I feel like I cannot, maybe that's it. It's like a therapy session. Hopefully you can relate, or at least this is interesting to you. But it's like, maybe that's what it is I just feel like I can't relax. And I do relax in a lot of ways, right? My life is really not that stressful. My life is fantastic because I work for myself and I have a lot of flexibility and tons of downtime. But I think maybe there's always part of me that's not relaxed. There's always part of me that's like, you can't relax for too long. You can't sleep for too long. You can't, do this for too long. You gotta it's almost like there's that tension, like a rubber band always being stretched, and maybe it'll be a little less stressed, but then it's always being stretched again really fast. And so at a certain point, that rubber band's going to snap. And right now I feel emotionally and mentally pretty stable, but there's that rubber band part of me right now with my body where it's constantly in my mind. Last night I had this long day yesterday, and again, not having a car, I feel out of control and limited and all of that. And I went to this friend's pool party, and I thought I was only going to be there for a few hours, but ended up being there for 8 hours. And so the whole food situation became complex because all they had at this party was snacks. And so I was snacking on a few things, and I'm like, I really shouldn't be eating these because they're not going to make me feel good. And then I'm going to, it's then it becomes this ongoing thing. And then we ended up going out, and then I was really hungry, and I had to debate, am I going to eat now? Am I going to eat? It's this whole analyzing that goes on. I don't know how normal that is. That's the thing because I know that I've struggled with disordered eating. Is there any normal? I'm unsure. Is the whole society out of whack because of things like social media and just the media in general? I don't know. That's very confusing to me. I don't know if there is any sort of normal when it comes to how we relate to food and our bodies and exercise and all that. Is it just a personal balance that we have to find? And again, coming back to my initial point, is because it's me, it's myself that I'm talking about. It's almost like I can't fully trust myself to know what feels right or balanced or normal, because if I do actually have or have had in my life disordered eating, maybe my brain just isn't right when it comes to anything related to my body. Maybe I just have disordered thinking around that, And what I really wonder, again, going back to that documentary I just saw, is that nature versus nurture. Was I wired from birth? Was it passed down to me in my genes? Would I have had this mentality regardless of my upbringing? Or was it because of some instances in my life that caused me to think this way? And I'm not going to ruin the movie, but there is a bit of a conclusion or an implied conclusion about that in the movie. So I really recommend that you see this movie, Three Identical Strangers. It's so good. I love documentaries, and this was and I'm always fascinated by twins and triplet, all that stuff. So fascinating. Such a good movie. So anyways, let's see. It's 30 minutes in. I have a little bit of time. I want to get focused on work. Let's see. Anything else that I want to discuss? I did just get a thumbs down. You know, the person that gives a thumbs down, it's like, it doesn't bother me quite as much, but it just makes me feel like, what is your problem? You know what I mean? Like, I'm pouring my heart out about my life, and somebody has the audacity to give somebody a thumbs down when they're sharing. And this is the sort of fucked up world that we live in, is that, like, we judge each other, and it's like exactly everything I just said. Like, all this stuff comes from judgment. It comes from personal judgment. It comes from external judgment, internal judgment. You know, like us just judging how somebody feels or what somebody does, what somebody looks like, how, you know, how long their YouTube. It's like all this bullshit judgment. Why the hell does YouTube have a thumbs down button is beyond me. We give people the power to judge one another by saying we don't like this, you know? And it's like, if you're still watching and you've given a thumbs down, like, please, like, just don't watch. Like, you don't need to give somebody that type of feedback. It's so rare for me to give anybody a thumbs down on YouTube. The only time that I would do that is if, like, they were trying to scam me, or, like, they were being, like, offensive to the, you know, I don't know, just, like, being overtly offensive to other people. But man, it's beyond me why people give thumbs downs on videos when somebody's sharing a vulnerable part of their life. And maybe the thumbs down is because they don't want me to talk like this or think like this. But again, it's just like, I don't know. But this is the thing, is like, I have had a life of so much judgment, and I think a lot of us do. I think maybe the reason people judge others is because they themselves have been judged, and it hurts. Sometimes we do things to other people that are hurtful because we're usually, I feel like. So the first emotion I usually feel when I see things like thumbs downs is like, I get very irritated. And then I usually feel some compassion for that person and just think, like, if you're using whatever that power that YouTube gives you to give a thumbs down, like, if that makes you feel good to disapprove of somebody in some way, then it's the smallest thing. It's like, okay, I know it's not about me, like, because I think that the way that somebody views me, it has nothing to do with me, you know? And that's like, this is where my balance comes in. This is where I know that I have some emotional stability, is like being able to step back and say, this isn't about me. I wish that and maybe I can strive towards that when it comes to how I feel about my body, is that you know, I think a lot of that comes out of this fear of being judged. Like, if I don't look a certain way, people are going to judge me negatively. If I don't wear makeup or do my hair or dress right or have a flat stomach, then people aren't going to like me. And I think that we're starting to see more and more women proudly showcase their flaws. And it's a really exciting time because it's becoming acceptable, and it's also, I don't know, I think this is what it is. It's like, I have spent so much of my life being terrified of people not liking me, right? Because it's painful, and I don't, I still have to figure out where that comes from. Right? So I've spent a lot of my life trying to mold myself to be a certain way so that people would approve of me. It's like, what can I do to be approved of? Like, and it's just like something that I want to continue reflecting on, because it's such a like not a good use of my time. And it's definitely impacted the way that I use YouTube and other platforms. It's like being afraid to just put things out there because everything needs to be analyzed in a sense of, will this be approved of, you know? And it's such a shame because you think like what could be done or could have been done had I not been so concerned about what other people would think. I know that the past 10 years of being on YouTube would be completely different had I not been so concerned about what other people would think. So I can't fix what I did or didn't do in the past 10 years. I can only move on from here. And coming back to what I said at the beginning of this video, I really feel best in my life when I am doing what I want to do, not just what I think I should do. So, with all that said, I'm going to have a sip of this coffee I made for myself. I've been increasingly, and this is my YouTube mug, and I'm wearing my Facebook shirt. I'm branding all these companies. I have been doing a lot on Facebook, so if you haven't been in my Facebook world, I have my Facebook page, Eco Vegan Gal. I have my Facebook show, Vegan Pal, which I haven't posted on in a while, so maybe that'll shift. I've been doing a lot in groups. I have a upcoming business challenge, which is linked in the description. I'm really excited about that because it's something brand new in a format I've never done entirely on Facebook. Lots of things. This week, I'm going to be testing out some new features on Facebook that are not even open to the general public. I've been doing a lot with Facebook, so I'm super excited about it. I love Facebook as a platform, and I've also done some stuff with YouTube. Like last week, I tested out some new things or talked to them about some things on YouTube, and it's like I'm so blessed to get these opportunities with these companies. So, you know, I love YouTube and Facebook. They're such amazing platforms, and there's no like end in sight for me in terms of what I'm doing. It's just kind of figuring out how I want to do it. But I was starting to say something before that. I was going to say that I've gotten really into coffee lately. And one point of joy for me is that coffee to me feels like my little indulgence, but it's actually not. It's pretty simple. So I've been making organic coffee, fair trade, and low acidic coffee. So that's like a really, like one of the best types of coffee you can have. So I brew that up. And then I think it was in May or June, maybe June, I got this milk frother. That's so amazing. It's like such a game changer for me. Like you plug it in and you pour in milk and you can make frothed hot or cold milk. I'll probably do a video about it. I'm obsessed with this thing. And then on one of my trips outside of my neighborhood, I got some Oatly oat milk, and I just got this big carton of it. So I keep it in my fridge, and I just pour like a little fourth of a cup into the frother, and I froth it up. And sometimes I'll make myself iced coffee. And all it is coffee, frothed milk, and then I'll add in a little stevia, and it's like the nicest treat. So right now it got a little flat because I was talking so much, but normally it'll be like so foamy and creamy, and it's like still tastes amazing. It just doesn't have quite the same texture. And that's been bringing me a lot of joy. Like coffee has just suddenly become, and again, it's like, did I get kind of addicted to coffee? I'm not sure. I'm trying to have a healthy relationship with coffee, because I've never been a big coffee drinker up until like the past year or so. I suddenly like got really into it. But anyways, let's see what else. I linked to you down below this project I've been working on with my friend Jason, so you can go check that out. That's part of the Facebook challenge I mentioned, and we're also doing a special weekend in a few weeks in Los Angeles, and that's been really rewarding. Like career-wise, things have been so good. And things in general are so good. I'm just trying to be really grateful and take everything day by day. And that includes my relationship with my body. I think like for me, fitness right now is all yoga. And I've been going to an amazing yoga studio, and it's become a bit of like a meditation, and it feels good to be getting in shape. It's just so tough when you've had a history of disordered thinking about your body. Like it kind of feels like it's never ended. For so many years I thought it was over, but the thoughts have been there my whole life, and I don't know if they'll ever go away. And I guess sometimes I just feel sad if I can kind of step away from myself more. I'm just trying to be more conscious of who I am and why I do things and why I don't do things. And sometimes I just feel sad. It's like if I was looking at myself from the outside as you are, there's probably so much about me that is not even true, but I just have these belief systems about. And this year, I've been very committed to letting go of limiting beliefs. And I think I've done a decent job at that, but I just still have a long way to go. Luckily, we're only about, just over halfway through the year. So still got some time to go. And at the end of the day, I'm grateful for my life, and I'm grateful for you, and I hope you're grateful for your life. And what else could we ask for? Life is really good, and I think we got to focus on those positive things and give ourselves breaks. And maybe I just haven't realized how on edge I tend to be. For most of my life, have talked in my sleep and had a bit of a sleep disorder, as it's been called once, and done sleepwalking and things like that. And last night I was talking to another friend who sleep talks, and we were like, I wonder why we do this. And again, is my brain wired a certain way? Do I have any control over that? Or is it a nurture thing where the way that either people around me or things I've experienced has led me to having belief systems and put me so on edge that I talk in my sleep and I get up and I walk around and I have little like panics in the middle of the night. My theme with my sleepwalking and dreams that I have around that are usually around like an intruder or something, and I have no idea where that comes from consciously. I'm like, I don't feel like I have an ongoing fear of people breaking into my house, or I have a lot of dreams around loss. So like a week or so ago, I remember I jumped up in the middle of the night and I was like, oh my God. And this is very common. I'll like shout, oh my God, over and over and over again. And like be in this complete panic. I'll feel my heart pounding. So I'll wake up, right? And I'll be in this frenzied state thinking that I lost something. Like I thought I left my purse and my wallet somewhere. And sometimes this will happen as I'm falling asleep. I'll find my brain. It's almost like it shifts into a different thought process. And suddenly my brain is like panicking about something that literally has not happened. It's like complete make-believe. And I probably should do something like a sleep study to see what's going on with my brain, but like, what's the psychology behind that? Is it that my brain is wired in a way to do weird things like that? Or is it all just like based on some deep-rooted fears that I could resolve, or some deep-rooted stress that I'm carrying around? We're complicated creatures. And again, that documentary, Three Identical Strangers, is like, sadly, there's a lot of things that they they weren't able, you know, kind of, it wasn't like you got all the answers in this movie. And so there's just so much unknown about us because we're complicated. We're very complicated. There's a lot of things that are very challenging to know, and in a way that's a great thing because we get to live our lives trying to figure something out. If we had all the answers, life may not be so interesting. So with that said, I'm going to go focus on some work. I feel really happy to have created this video, and I didn't read any of the comments because I just wanted to kind of flow with it. But let me just look, and I see that Kate and Yadi had written, oh, Kate, so sweet. And Yadi asked, making videos with the purpose of being in service to others. I have had that mentality a lot, and I do a good amount of the time. It's just sometimes I get confused about what other people need. That's really what it is. I am so motivated by feedback. I try not to be, but feedback is so, makes such a difference for me. And it's really hard to get feedback from people. You know, so I appreciate people that leave comments so much because most people don't leave comments. I'm just reading through some of Yadi and Kate's comments. Yeah, a lot of just kind of agreements with things that I'm saying. Well, I think, you know, there's probably some of you that watch videos because you're just curious about who I am, but other of you watch because you can relate, or maybe a little of both. And it's always my hope that by sharing, I am in a way of service to you because I'm either entertaining you or you're reflecting on your own life and having realizations while I'm having mine. So I hope it gives you one of those things, and that's part of the reason I share. It also is therapeutic to share, so I recommend that you do the same in whatever context works best for you. And I'm grateful to have a place to share these things. It's a unique thing. So with that said, I don't know when my next video will be. But in the meantime, you can stay in touch through my other platforms. So as I mentioned, I'm doing a lot on Facebook. And I have the Eco Vegan Gal Facebook, Vegan Pal Show, the Wellevator brand, which is linked down below. We've got that challenge coming up. So if you have a business or you want to, most of our content's geared to people that are content creators like me or small business owners, entrepreneurs. So if that fits you, then check out the challenge if you're watching this anytime soon. And if you're not, I'm looking for a way to keep the challenge be evergreen, as they call it, meaning that you could participate in the challenge at another time. Right now we're doing it like completely live. So for starting this Wednesday, we're going to be doing all sorts of things for that. And if you know anybody else who's a content creator or small business owner in the wellness world, you can pass that on to them. And we also have our weekend coming up, which is the business immersion. I'm so excited about that. So that's really occupying a lot of my time, and I'll be just very focused on that. You'll see me posting about that on Instagram, which is another place you can be in touch. And, you know, I post little stories on Instagram frequently, and that's always a good place to see what I'm up to if I'm not posting videos here. All my usernames currently are Eco Vegan Gal, unless it's an offset like Wellevator. And that's it for now. Thank you so much for being in my life. Thank you for watching. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for just holding space. It's one of the greatest gifts that you could give me. So I can't thank you enough for that. And I'll hope to see you very soon.